Okay, I'm going to do this talk here on the open startup and ultimately talk about really the pain. The pain is we're coming to an end of growth. This is the massive pain. How do we bring about the innovation to help, to limit this event that has been forecast since 1971? If you look, we're right here, and I believe we're pretty much at the tip here. Okay, I believe we are here, right? We are at the end of growth right now, and how do we bring about the innovation? That's really the question because success equals access to capital, and yet we cannot bring about that success. So the end of growth is a massive new innovation stage paradigm that just crossed the threshold. But what is a startup? Okay, you have to understand a startup is broken into three stages. Here's that same, this is, the what's known as the law of diffusion of innovation. So 2.5% of startups are innovation stage startups, and ultimately you could actually invert this triangle. A vast majority of them are actually pre-seed. So this is actually the opportunity of the pre-seed startups actually becoming early stage ones. And what we're trying to do is actually eliminate the middle stage. That's what we're doing with the open startup paradigm. We're eliminating the need for the seed stage. So it's really pre-seed to seeded. That's the future. All right. So a startup basically is any idea or company that has under 200, well, under 100,000 looking to launch. So our goal is to make it really simple, kind of like how if you think about Jobs, what he did with the PC for everyone, what we're doing is the same thing for the startup. Imagine not having to worry about incorporating, not having to worry about securing IP, not having to worry about, basically, how do I raise money for my startup? How do I move it from point A to point B? What are the different stages? Imagine if all this is a ubiquitous solution. This is what I spent the last 2 years architecting. It's turning it on its head. That's why I have the upside down eye, all right? Turning innovation on its head. And as a result of turning this innovation on its head, what we're going to do is actually bring about what I call the innovation revolution. Not the startup revolution, but the innovation revolution, because for the last 5,000 years, innovation has been held back because of capital, right? So imagine 95% of valid ideas become successfully launched. So if your idea validates, you don't worry about raising money. It just validates. People like it. Will people follow it? People will put some support it in twittering it and so on. Will it launch? Imagine if, as a result, these companies become open corps, right? That turn around and invest back into launching more social capital innovation startups, right? These are the kind of startups that we need, and these are the ones that are having the biggest trouble launching their ideas. Basically, success equals validate idea. It's a completely new way of approaching startups. So you have your idea, which is level zero, right? And ultimately, what we're trying to do is level it up, get it to each level. Now, the objective here, as a user, is which do you think are actually going to get there and at what point? So at each level, we accomplish different things. It's very straightforward. Um, so there's level 3, which is developing, level 5, which is building, and level 7, which is launching. And obviously, there are some intermediary stages between each level, right? Is raising 100,000. Next one is success raising 100 to 2 million. Um, I'm sorry, that's the launching, right? So at each level, we're using the crowd to fund these different things and to get them to where they need to go. My name is Michael Trout. I'm going to continue this presentation, but this is part one of a talk. So this is part two of the talk, Open Startup Paradigm. The paradigm is really simple. You have an idea, it's level zero. Our goal is to get it to level 7. You follow a very systematic track or roadmap to get it there, and everything is provided for you. As I said, imagine not needing to have to incorporate. That is done at level 5. You actually become a wholly owned subsidiary of ourselves or an affiliate at level 5. You don't need to do anything. It just automatically gets done. Imagine that. Level 3, you want to secure IP and other stuff. You've raised a little money. Imagine not having to worry about getting attorneys or any of that stuff. It gets done for you, and we use mass buying power, kind of like on a Groupon, to secure the best rates for you. And the thing is, it's in our interest to make sure that you secure the IP. Imagine the kind, we're securing IP from the idea stage. Most people securing the IP from the building stage. Ultimately, what we'll end up doing is creating this massive pool of IP that we will be able to basically provide to other open startups, all right? Because we're all basically a karetsu. We're working together for the greater good. What's the greater good? We're here to fight and to stem off the end of growth. So ultimately, each stage is very systematic. You move small steps, and the thing is, what we're doing is you win by guessing which level 0 ideas are going to get to level 7. The early bird catches the worm. So right now, the goal is to kind of like, okay, what are buildings? You're guessing. Investors are coming in at level 5, right? If you think about it, right? This is the seed stage. This is where people, this is the innovation stage. So what I want to do was to create a way to get people to jump onto early ideas, right? Because these guys, the level 0 person who puts in some Bitcoin, right, who guesses and votes for this idea, gets to level 3, is going to win. He's going to win even more if he guesses, I think it's going to go to level 5. And again, he's going to win even more if I think it's going to go to level 7, right? So ultimately, the game is what level do you think this idea is going to get to, right? And as people come in, obviously a level 3 person guessing it's going to go to level 7 is not going to earn as much as someone who put in at level 0. Make sense? So the whole idea here is to flip it on its head and to encourage people to get in early. All right. So how do we do that? Well, we tie everything with Bitcoin, and I've done some talks on Bitcoin. I like Bitcoin because it's kind of like, if you think about Bitcoin, it's very similar to gold. There's only a certain amount, and ultimately what you're trying to do is you're validating, and there's a specific way, and every bit of validation is tied to Bitcoin, and actually creates a pool. So imagine there's a pool of Bitcoin that's being generated here, being put aside, and basically if you guess right, you win a percentage of this pool, right, which is shared amongst those that win. So every activity is throwing money in, and as we go further and further, the chunks of Bitcoin going into this pool get bigger and bigger and bigger. So as you basically are guessing, because all investment is guessing, you're guessing where it's going to go, you're going to win. Now, what ends up happening is that when it gets to level 7, right? Here we are at level 7, right? Ultimately, what it means is it's a company, and now not only that, a whole bunch of its net profits are going to go what? Reinvested back into ideas. By who? By the lesser stakeholders. The lesser stakeholders are those individuals that can actually put money into ideas. So think of this as it's a snake eating its own tail, right? This is so highly scalable. I can't stress how scalable. Small amounts of Bitcoin, right? And I'll talk about that next as I go to the next slide. But ultimately, what we're doing here is we're allowing folks at no risk, right? Put in some Bitcoin, which you're automatically mining just by having the platform. You're earning Bitcoin, right? So you're providing us processing power. This processing power is being sold. You're getting returned in Bitcoin. These Bitcoins then are allocated to the ideas that you like, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger ultimately until the launch, right? So you have our passive crowdfunding, our crowdfunding 1, our crowdfunding 2, and our what I call strategic initiative capital campaign 1. All right, so this is part 3 of our talk. I'm putting them all together in one talk, but basically what I've done is I've talked about here. This is the cycle, right? It's a perpetual cycle. This makes what we're doing so highly scalable. It'll become the most highly scalable launch platform. The cool thing is being an affiliate doesn't cost anything, because ultimately we want to launch Open Corps. Why? Because Open Corps invests back into our system. It becomes a highly scalable thing. We create a new crowdfunder, the Archangel. The Archangel, who are they? They are lesser stakeholders of open corporations that take up to 80% of net profits and invest them back into what? The open startup paradigm. So ultimately, what we're trying to launch is innovations that are going to help and slow and to lessen the pain of the end of growth. Understand that is our big pain. That is what we're trying to solve. And as that paradigm becomes a reality, people are going to go, holy crap, Michael Trout had the vision back in 2012, and all he's missing is some silly capital to launch it. So ultimately, success equals validated idea. If your idea validates, guess what? We get to move on. So please, if you go to our take a survey, answer these questions. So what's the big picture? Where are we headed? What's this Open Corp? Well, the Open Corp ultimately is a selfless corporation. And to give you an example, right now less than 1%, okay, of the individuals support. I mean, these companies all listed here are supported by the 1%, the 1% who have the money. What are we trying to do? Well, OSI, the Open Startup Incubator, right? OSI will replace the 1%. Remember, it removes those seed investors with the 99%. And as we launch our Open Corps, they're turning around and putting more money, okay, back into our system, which is what? Is launching more corporations. These individuals are the archangels, right? The archangels. And what we ultimately are creating is something I call the Open Corp Cloud. It's a keiretsu. It's a keiretsu, which is a network of blue oceans that are working together in order to bring about change. So why is Bitcoin the currency that I want us to use? Well, ultimately, Bitcoin, when I did Foundup dollars, I did Foundup dollars because I didn't know Bitcoin existed at the time. And Bitcoin is exactly the currency that I was seeing Foundup dollars becoming. Since Bitcoin exists, it makes sense to actually just use Bitcoin. It's fixed. There's only a certain amount of Bitcoin. It can't be created. Every Bitcoin mined is shared in the Open Incubator Startup community. So what that means is that basically if someone earns a Bitcoin, right, through our platform, remember we're doing peer-to-peer mining, the entire community, we're talking about millions of people who are basically mining Bitcoin, are sharing micro Bitcoin. Bitcoin can be divided up to 8 decimal places, right? So everyone is getting Bitcoin based on the amount they're mining. So if they're doing 10% of the mining, they'll get 10% of the Bitcoin, right, being mined by the total community. So if you've got a supercomputer, so it's fair, it's equitable, we share, and every action, a like, a follow, a join, a tweet, you name it, okay, has a micro Bitcoin transaction that goes into a Bitcoin pool. This Bitcoin pool is shared now with the winners. Okay, so depending on, basically you're giving this micro amounts of Bitcoin. People are actually putting Bitcoin into these ideas. Those people that put the Bitcoin into those ideas are actually going to win part of that pool, right? Because they're the active players. So you're actually feeding indirectly just by your interacting on it. And what do you do with Bitcoin? Well, you can spend this Bitcoin on pretty much everything. You can buy cool computers, you can buy any product, you can buy cars, you can buy houses, you can buy whatever you want, okay? You can put whatever you want on our platform. You'll also be able to change and outsource, okay, output our product. Now, what I mean by that is that we will take your Bitcoin and translate it into any currency you want at a small transaction fee. So, the soft proto is a new way to launch ideas without having to code, right? The soft proto concept is kind of, think of a proof of concept as the napkin drawing. I've done this talk before, so I'm going to skip over this here. A soft proto is the model. It's kind of like what the architects come in and say, hey, will you invest in this? This, you can go to this and you can play around with the soft proto. This is the soft proto, the soft prototype. No coding needed. It's that simple.